most people getting sick like headache, like flow, sometimes being bad, being stomach, something.
Right, everything else.
Yeah. Time was getting old.
Finish.
Getting over 45, 50, getting up.
We want to start back the program. Inshallah, Tabarak to Allah, brothers and sisters in Islam. Inshallah. What time we have now?
Now it's 6:25. You want to play
6 who?
6:25.
Okay, the next speaker is going to come on at 7, pardon me, astaghfirullah, at 6:45. That's 15 minutes. We're going to delay Isha. You know, the Prophet we would delay Salat al-Isha until Nisf al-Layl, sometime midnight. Most of the time, that's what they mentioned the hadith. So instead of praying at 7:30, we're going to pray at 8:15. Because we got two speakers. One, Imam Yusuf is coming on at 6:45. He's going to speak from 6:45 to 7:25 Eastern time, the time we are now. And then at 7:30 to 8:05, Sheikh Hanif is going to come on, Hanif Davis. So what we want to do now for these 15 minutes, until the Sheikh he comes in the room, is open the floor and just get some discussion about, burnout, depression, suicide, because these are real life issues. And sometimes the best therapy is to talk about the issues. So I want to start with burnout. Who can tell me what is burnout, and have you ever experienced burnout, and what did you do dealing with that burnout?
Burnout is basically.
Give him the mic so the people can hear online. Here, you can take this mic. Just make sure you give it back and go home with it, because we need it. I got people upstairs and online too. Fuck them. Here you go. Welcome, Saddam.
Burnout is basically overworking and overburdening yourself to the point where you feel like overwhelmed.
Come closer to me so the people, I can make sure they hear you online.
Burnout is overworking and overwhelming yourself until the point that you feel overwhelmed and you can't keep up or you can't keep going, and then it starts to like beat you down or break you down, so to say. And you get overwhelmed with what you're going through.
Have you ever been through that yourself, personally? You don't mind saying yes or no?
I think so.
You think so?
Because I'm saying that to say everybody been through some sort of burnout. I can't really think of anything specific at the moment, but actually yes, like working. Because as a matter of fact, I do over the road, like all 48 states trucking. So
okay.
I've been burnt out like over the road and just running for like 5 months and just in the truck, sleeping in the truck, showers at the truck stop, food on the road, just
So what did you do to cope with that? And what was your level of burnout? Was it to the level of depression? Was it to the level of suicidal thoughts? Was it to the level of feeling like, I can't do this anymore, I got to do something else? What was your level and what did you do?
Not necessarily to the level of suicide at all, but like more or less so what it was I would be going in like a direction opposite of where I felt like I needed to be going, because that's where the money was going and that's where the work was going, so to say. But so I'm living in Atlanta and my problems are in Atlanta. I need to get back to Atlanta. I'm in, let's say, Tennessee, but now I'm going to New Mexico. So the whole ride is depressing because I really my mind and everything I have going on is like completely in the opposite direction that I'm physically going in. So that used to be like, real depressing or draining, because I just, like, you had to do it, but it's like, again, like my mind was really like back in Georgia,
So what did you do to cope?
Nothing really. I mean, besides just, make salat, dua, things of that nature. Like I didn't have nothing specific that I would
that's
say.
Specific. If you were praying and making supplication, that's spiritual, that's religious, and that's specific. Yeah. So alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So jazakallah khair. So for For some people, it's enough that they could, have some spiritual, religious involvement in their life to deal with burnout or the being very overwhelmed. And for some people, the issue of supplication and praying, unfortunately, is not enough. That's why, people resort to other things based on their level and where they are and, what's going on with them at that time. Now, alhamdulillah, somebody else can talk about burnout. Don't feel shy. If you feel shy, then don't put yourself in a situation where we're going to talk about if you feel shy. We want to benefit. We want to learn from your experience, because people are dealing with this every day, and sometimes hearing somebody else's situation helps another person to cope, or it makes them see that their situation is not as bad as they thought. Anybody else? What about depression? Come on, we live in America. You cats ain't gonna tell me I ain't never been depressed. You know what I'm saying? On a low level, a medium level, high level. That's it out.
I was depressed once. I was also thinking about suicidal thoughts when I was depressed. I tried to do it, but I didn't succeed. So I believe that Allah kept me alive for a reason. And I just prayed to Allah help, me get over this depression, because I was dealing with depression for like 5 years when I was homeless. And alhamdulillah, Allah helped me get over the depression.
Move the mic down from the mic.
Okay. And alhamdulillah, Allah helped me get over the depression.
Yeah.
So, and with also medication too that I take.
Medication is important.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Thank you very much. That took a lot of courage to talk about something so personal as being depressed, let alone it's something driving you to think about self-worth and, not feeling, worth anything, and ultimately, why am I here? And then you try to take your life. But it's also subhanahu wa ta'ala that has already written that some people are going to go through that. He's also written and decreed and decided, because he knows you better than you know your own self, if you're going to succeed and if you're not going to succeed. And wallahi, sometimes it's just a lesson for the victim of the burnout, depression, and suicide, as well as a lesson for those around them that this is real. And that because you went through it doesn't make you less of a person than the next person, because it's not what you went through, it's how you deal with what you went through. It's not what you went through, but it's how you deal with what you went through. For example, he said, he tried. Did he try a second, a third, a fourth? No. And obviously speaking, he's highly grateful. And he realizes that that wasn't the best choice. And he realized that he's worth something. And if nobody loves him, he loves himself. You see. So this is, subhanAllah, Allah's mercy that he has chosen us to share these experiences. Alhamdulillah. What time is it? 6:34.
Can I share one more experience, brother?
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Abdul Rashid.
You're live on the line. Just let you know.
I can definitely relate to the cognitive distortion of suicide, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot have to do with my upbringing. A lot have to do with being raised in a dysfunctional family where there was constant substance abuse, alcohol, that had deteriorated my way of thinking, the people that I was in company with. I believe that My errors of thinking definitely came about my company. Unfortunately, I would have to also say my father. I lost part about the rest of his soul in peace. My father was a very negative influence on me. Very negative influence because of the things that I seen him did. But that still doesn't justify, as I reached the age of maturity and making the right decision for what's right or wrong, it made me into a place where I didn't want to go. A lot of individuals know, my brothers here know that I spend a lot of time in I can't say the word, the Imam is correcting me, not the word Sijin, but
Sijin.
Sijin.
Barakallahu
All right,
feek.
I spend a lot of time in the Sijin. I believe that's where I met my demons. Because I used to be gang affiliated while I was Muslim. I used to be blood. I come to find out this is not what I want to be. I'm trying to find peace with myself. I want to put this all in a nutshell and make my point come home. It was Attica. Attica changed my life forever. Those who ever spent time in state prison will tell you, you ain't been nowhere till you've been to Attica. Attica changed my life forever. I'm seeing inmates getting stabbed. This is what I witnessed with my own eyes. I'm seeing inmates and officers getting stabbed and killed, getting shot with tear gas. Get down, lay down. If not, they will put a bullet below your waist. The officers that's in the tower. I was subjected to this for 20 years. So mentally, I am messed up. There's times that I want to commit suicide just to, even though I knew it's haram to commit suicide, because I did clean my shahada and I was studying the deen. It was too much. It was too much. Seeing the officers don't have no respect for the black inmates and vice versa, being in an abnormal environment. You got to constantly, every time they crack your gate, you got to constantly got to worry about somebody trying to stick you with a knife or trying to shoot you with a dagger, whatever the case may be. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me survive all that.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, Allah made me survive all that.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, because when I went up north, I came up with 25 years to life. And I lived in the law library. I was given reversal in the second department of appellate division because they claimed I was given illegal sentence. But this further compounded my depression. It further compounded my way of thinking I want to commit suicide. Because I didn't think there was no hope. I had no purpose of living.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there was going to be no light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
SubhanAllah.
and this is what I was doing. Like, I was already on my 17th year when a breakthrough came in my case. You know, and when Allah opened up my eyes, opened up my call, and seen, brother, when Allah said kun fayakun to be and it is, you don't know what decree of Allah can be, even though it's good or bad.
Alhamdulillah.
And in my case, it was good.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, and I gotta thank Imam Anwar because me and this brother go too far back.
Alhamdulillah.
Too far back. And he saved my life when I got released in 2017.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, and like I said, I still got my demons. I'm still fighting with.
Alhamdulillah.
But brothers, I'm still here.
Jazakallah.
You know, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for your courage and your story. Jazakallah khair. What time do we have now?
7:38. 6:38.
6:30.
Alhamdulillah. So as we could see, you know, these are real live issues. And, you know, they always say you can't judge a book by its cover because, you know, things look one way on the outside, but you never know what's going on the inside. And, you know, we're in a very challenging world, let alone the society that we live in. You know, when you hear, like in the stories that people talked about environments, people talked about upbringings, people talked about, you know, what they went through, you know, under their parental guidance. People talk about, you know, how they felt, and people talk about, you know, drug use and alcohol use. I mean, these are real life things, you know, and it's easy for us when we live in the United States to be exposed to these things, you know, weapons and gang violence. Some people think this is only in TV. I remember when I was in Yemen and we had some people from Great Britain, and they were saying like, man, this is cool, hit that alarm. I have that set. It had snooze and it had stop. Yeah. And the guy was saying, yeah, this is cool, and he said, he watches TV and he wants to, and I said, man, what are you talking about, man? We live this for real in America. And he was like, huh? I said, yeah. This ain't no TV in America. This is real life. And he was blown away. So for us, we have a lot to be thankful for because we visit, we live, we revisit, we associate, we hear about, we see these things every day. And it's only by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy that we're able to continue and function, in these type of circumstances. And, inshallah, we ask Allah to make it a strength for us that we are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that we understand that to give up hope, this is one of the greatest major sins, to give up hope. And the first one to give up hope was Iblis. La'natullah alayhi. He was the first one to give up hope. Because on the other hand, our father Adam, he acknowledged his wrong. He didn't say, well, Iblis, you tricked me, and if we didn't whisper, no. He acknowledged his wrong because Allah told him not to eat from the tree and, gave him directives what to do. So he acknowledged. And he made tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in some of the verses, Allah said Allah Azza wa Jal invited him to make tawbah and then he accepted. But Iblis, on the other hand, he gave up hope. And giving up his hope caused him to blame Allah. So when you give up hope, you blame others. When you give up hope, you run from the reality. And this is one of the greatest tricks to get a person to not only stay deep in the sickness and the dark alleys of depression, but it's one of the things that leads oftentimes to suicidal thoughts and someone trying to carry out the mission of suicide because they gave up all hope. And that's what Tabarak wa Ta'ala's prophet, he mentioned, qunut min rahmatillah, to despair from the mercy of Allah, or yet to give up hope, is from the greatest of major sins. So this is something that's relevant when we talk about the issue of the stories that we heard, the stories that we read, people that we know, and even sometimes what has been reflected in our own lives. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen us, because this is the apex of weakness, what we go through in this regard. We need strength. We need inner strength. We need outer strength. We need to know that somebody loves us. Sometimes somebody just needs somebody to just hug them and say, listen, man, you matter. We love you, Love yourself, but we love you, Sometimes, you find in relationships, people don't show that type of compassion, but there's nothing wrong. Sometimes you need to tell your wife, I love you. Sometimes you need to tell your husband, I love you, as a person, We have this superficial, someone told us you have to say, I love you for the sake of Allah. Get out of here. You're talking about someone that's sharing life with you, someone who's going through ups and downs. They need to know as a person you love them. As a person, they love you. This is what you need, because this is the genuine thing that people need, love, you see. So alhamdulillah, I want to thank the people who shared their experiences, their stories, and I hope that it resonates and it shows us the reality of these things. And inshallah, Sheikh Yusuf should be coming on any moment. What time we have now?
6:40.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Anybody else, while we wait for the Sheikh to come live on the Facebook? How do you deal when you have someone that you know that's going through this. This is another thing. Someone comes to you, how do you deal? Do you turn them away? Do you listen to them? Do you try to offer them some resources? Where's Yusuf? You're that kind of person that somebody would come to. You know, what do you do? Do you turn them away? Do you refer them? How do you deal?
You just try to listen to them for the most part.
Just try to listen to them for the most part.
Validate the feelings, validate what they're going through. Don't trivialize it and minimize it.
Yes,
validate. Try to let them know that it's valid. What they're going through is valid, and it's something that's serious.
Yes.
Take it seriously. I think sometimes that's the beginning. That's why people wanted to trust you and wanted to rely on you, or being able to see you as a helpful person. Being able to just show that you're actually there to help them.
Yes.
Sometimes listening to people, let them get that off their chest, or let them kind of speak out was very helpful.
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So our brother Yusuf, he said, first validate the person. Even if you don't think that what they're saying is the way that it should be seen or understand.
Yusuf Rios wants to be in your video.
You should validate it, treat it serious, listen to them, allow them to get it off their chest. Now, let's see, Shaikhs.
Hakeem Annie Plumber. Salma Ahmed. Hakeem Annie Plumber is watching.
And now you're going to see Yusuf. He asked to be joined. So you join him. You see? It said Yusuf Rios asked to join your video.
I don't see him.
Okay, don't see him. You're on Facebook, huh? Are we still there?
Still on Facebook Live, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he asked to join. It said it, but I didn't hit anything. Rios. Don't see it.
Nope, I see Nadia. Say bring them on camera.
What? Who? What's the name?
Nadia. N-A-D-Y. Logrina.
No.
Not sure.
No, it said Yusuf Rios. It actually said his name. Scroll again.
There's not much. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people watching.
Okay.
None of them are Yusuf.
Okay, Sheikh Yusuf, if you're listening, can you ask to come into the video again?
No.
You see it? Adding it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I'm trying to see if I can. Let me see.
Salam alaikum.
You put the belly into your speaker.
Right.
Yeah.
What you do? You just hold it. Oh, you got it.
If you can turn on the mobile.
تفضل شيخ.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So it's good to speak with you. I don't know exactly where you guys were at. We entered into the session, so if you can brief me, it would be good.
We actually you got a lot of okay. We actually we actually talked about issue of burnout, how it leads to depression and suicidal thoughts, sometimes carrying out suicide.
With you. So
Can you bring up the phone?
It's some noise being made in my machine.
you said that there's some noise.
Yes, like a feedback, some type of mic noise.
Okay, let me try to come back on.
Okay, inshallah. They were knocking upstairs. I don't know if it's because they couldn't hear or. No. Yeah, we know about that. It's gonna come. It's gonna try to re-enter.
You need to find a way to stabilize the mic for now. Not too close, not too far, but
Yeah, I mean the main thing was whatever was going on his end, because if we leave it like this or put it close, it just raises the volume for us to hear. But that noise was coming from his side, and I don't know what his connection or his mic or I don't know. Sometimes it happens when we're doing live connect, Zoom, YouTube, whatever, Facebook. Just trying to come back in and say, is that mic on? Cut that mic on. You have a switch on that mic. Yeah. Cut that one off. Let's see. That helps.
it's off now.
We're waiting for Sheikh Yusuf. He's going to come back. There was some difficulty on his end, so he's trying to re-enter to the Facebook. Inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala. He's in Chicago. Maybe storming the air, and whatnot.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So you said that you were talking about the issue of burnout and how it leads to other things. I wanted to begin and brief, just like with a brief reflection with regard to with regard to two things, which is the issue of imbalance and also transgressions. And this is just speaking in general terms. I wanted to talk about the type of environment that creates. What is the, we look at the qualities that the angels have. Angels, belief in the angels is from the usul of iman, is from the foundations of iman. And what is that when we understand the qualities of the angels is that they worship Allah wa ta'ala without any interruption. They don't tire in that regard, right? They don't tire in that regard. And that's something that the Quran, indicates to with regard to the angels. Human beings, they tire out. And one of the things is that this deen is mateen, as is indicated too, in the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we're warned about, going to an exaggeration in the way that we practice Islam, because it ends up coming to harm us, right? It ends up coming to harm us. And so, there's that first thing about being balanced so that we don't burn out when it comes to practicing the deen. And then there's that other thing that, burnout, a lot of times it also can be traced to other things, which is like not having a balanced lifestyle, right? And not having a balanced lifestyle with regard to, with the way that we eat, we take care of ourselves. And so we see that the children of Ben Israel, the children of Adam, they were warned, not to go to an excess, when it comes to their existence in the dunya, when it comes to existence in the dunya. وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, as the Quran says, in the case of, basically eat and drink. In this case, it's just literally, drink, but don't go to an excess. And the other issue, other thing is that, so there's the issue of not being balanced in the deen. There's the issue of not being balanced in how we take care of ourselves with regard to our food. And then there's the issue of having a tendency, to isolate ourselves from people. You know what I'm saying? To isolate ourselves from people, when in the deen we're commanded to be with one another. And that isolation can come for different reasons. Isolation, it can come for different reasons, but there's no doubt that this lifestyle is one which has imposed upon us a certain level of individualism. The idea of the jama'ah, whether in the concept of the family or the community, is almost missing, right? Is almost missing. And we have the command, to hold on to the rope together, right? And don't divide. And the rope, the habl of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, the ulama, they define that to be a number of different things, whether it's the book of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, whether it's Islam, whether it's Iman. In the books of tafsir, the ulama, they look at the rope of Allah as being a number of different things. But the important thing here is just to get that basic framework that at the end of the day, we end up burning out for a number of different reasons. Those are reasons that we can control. The ones that were just mentioned have a lot to do with our own development, our own upbringing. Whether, how we're taught the deen, sometimes a lot of us go to an extreme. Sometimes we're taught in a particular way, we start to practice the deen in a specific way, then we burn out as a consequence of how we were practicing. but also from the angle of taking care of ourselves, but also from the angle of having a tendency of not being used to being with one another, and or from being in an environment which is hostile. We end up dividing from the community, so on and so forth. And that leads to that sense of apathy, that sense of not wanting to do anything, with regard to our lives and the deen. And eventually, what I'm saying, in some of those cases, like in the case of being extreme in our practice, we eventually are going to burn out with that. At a lesser level, it's just we don't feel like we're going to commit to anything. We don't want to commit to the Jamaat. We don't want to commit to the community. And walaikum salam. And that's because it has a lot to do with our, lifestyle. I wanted to just give that outline there. In other words, some things are in our control, and some things are not in our control with regard to the issue of burning out. I wanted to focus really brief on that issue, that side of it, which is within our control. We have to look at our practice. We have to look at our lifestyle. We have to look at the fact that, look, we can't do this alone. We are going to burn out if we don't support one another. And many people, especially, we see this in the community. Our sisters, this is the side where it starts to move away from the practice of the deen, and it starts to be an issue of our lifestyle. A lot of us are used to doing things on our own. We're used to not counting on each other. And we say that, I'm not going to ask anybody. We say that, I got this. Or we say, I have to do this on my own. What ends up happening as a consequence is more and more we end up pulling away from people because we don't want to ask for favors. We don't want to depend on them, or we don't have a support system. All of that takes us into a different state. It's not one in which we become apathetic, but it's one in which we become literally burnt out spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, right? And that's as a consequence of not having a support system, not having a jama'ah. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he built the early companions on that framework of a jama'ah. We supported each other. They were commanded by Allah to cooperate with one another in bir, which is to go beyond the basics in doing good and serving each other. First of all, serving Allah, serving each other, doing good in the world, and then in taqwa. We're commanded to cooperate in bir and taqwa. And here the ayah of the Quran, it puts bir before taqwa. So it's first starting off like, look, cooperate in what's good, what's excellent. You know what I'm saying? Be there with each other in that struggle for doing good, for taking care of one another. And then, we're reminded that there's a foundation to that, and that foundation that we have to make sure that we're cooperating and upholding the deen, whether it's the jama'ah in the salah, or whether it's the jama'ah collecting the zakat, or whether it's the jama'ah on looking after the poor in the community. So we're commanded in that regard, and then we're prohibited from cooperating with each other in an ism wal udwan, in sin. And then here we go from sin to the effects of sin. Udwan is where we begin to have animosity and enmity towards one another. And when that animosity and enmity is there, we're going to feel alienated from one another, because we're going to have the gossip, we're going to have the slander, we're going to have the criticism. And actually, Imam al-Ghazali, in the duties of brotherhood, he brings that up as the eighth, as the third duty from the eighth, that we have to watch our tongues and how we deal with one another, right? And so, he talks about criticism, how we jump to criticize each other, how it's a problem. He talks about how we gossip against one another, how we slander, how that's a problem. And he talks about how that tongue is going to rip us apart. So those are all things, within our control. That we have an environment which is hostile. We have trauma in our community that, sometimes it goes untreated. So that burnout, some is because we don't have supports and we're on our own, we're struggling. we seem to be in a situation where economically we're having hardship. We're in a situation sometimes where we can't depend upon our own families. We're in a situation where we're finding ourselves divided from our brothers and sisters, whether it's because people don't believe in the concept of community or whether because it's just an environment where people have a habit going against the sunnah, which ultimately is going to lead us to an issue of dehumanization and not upholding human dignity. It's an environment which we're not taking care of one another. So of course we're going to burn out in that type of environment. Of course, if there's an economic struggle and we find ourselves in our marriages struggling to maintain, we're going to burn out. People, there's a point at which we have to learn how to love ourselves. Malcolm taught us that reality. The deen didn't take that away. The sunnah didn't take that away. The sunnah only came to reinforce that reality. The sunnah came to reinforce the reality of upholding human dignity. One of the objectives of the Sharia is the preservation of our dignity. And the Quran itself says, لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that Allah Himself is saying that He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, honored the children of Adam. That's you, that's me, that's us, that's our community. And if we don't have a good conception for ourselves, if we don't have a positive understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in dignity, and we think about ourselves in the way that society thinks about ourselves, of course we're going to push towards mental health issues. You know what I'm saying? This society has that problem. This society has a problem with attacking the dignity of indigenous people, and it creates that environment of tension from the door. There's such a thing called racial battle fatigue. And that racial battle fatigue is when we're constantly in a battle with the fact that the society is not necessarily recognizing our dignity. But there's also the issue of how we are treating each other within the context of that struggle, and of how we're dealing with the material reality. So all of those things in that regard, are issues that are running, issues that are going on, how we interact with the society, how the society interacts with us. But then there's also the issue of what we have that we inherit. We have mental health conditions at times in our community, and that's not to say that we're the only community that has mental health issues. That's not true. Many communities have mental health issues. But one of the things that we are not admitting that we have mental health issues, and for good reason. A lot of times we're not trusting the medical industry, or we put labels on each other. He crazy, you know what I'm saying? That type of thing. He off his meds. We say things which are insulting. People have different conditions that they go through, and rather than being supported, we take that and we flip it into a situation where we name people or we belittle them because of their struggles. He bipolar, we say those types of things. And so that in itself contributes, to a poor mental health condition. And so there is other things that go on when it comes to our situation, and that is that when that mental health goes untreated, it could lead us to a position of clinical depression where we feel burnt out, like we're not going to do anything. It's a different type of burnout than the struggle of, the grind, so to speak, of life. It's a different type of burnout. I'm tired of hearing people criticizing, so on and so forth. Once we get to a point of what they call clinical depression, we can literally be at a state where we don't feel even that we can make salah. We don't feel even that we want to go to work. We don't feel that even we want to be with people. We become more and more isolated. And once that becomes our state, it's very logical for us to start having suicidal ideation. You understand what I'm saying? Because of the state that we're in. And so there's a lot of stuff to be said. I'm trying to emphasize these points that, first of all, we have to love ourselves. You understand what I'm saying? We got away from that as a community. And that's a problem. You understand? We have to be able to feel comfortable with ourselves in our own skin. We have to be able to look in that mirror and say, Allah created me as I am meant to be. I have value. I have dignity. The other thing is we have to also admit, like Dr. Amos Wilson was saying, that we live in certain conditions which are, which go against our dignity and our well-being. So in order to survive, we take to habits of life that are not necessarily always healthy. You understand what I'm saying? And we see that. We see in our community sometimes, people smoke weed, they drink, they smoke cigarettes, they eat fast food that's unhealthy. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff is a lot of times is about survival. It's about, working through the emotions that we go through. It's about working through the situation that we in. Imam Ben in the 9th century wrote a book that became translated. The title was The Sustenance of the Soul. And the first thing that Imam al-Balkhi talked about was physical health. He said that the body has to be taken care of. Our physical health, people. And I'm talking about, in our case, moving away from foods that give us diabetes and high blood pressure. All of that stuff contributes, especially in the old age, contributes to a sense of ill-being. So he told us that our mental health and eventually our spiritual health with Allah, our iman, is dependent in part on our taking care of ourselves, so we can feel good in our bodies. If you don't take care of your sugar blood level, and your sugar blood level is out of control, you're playing around with death. Of course, with those highs and lows that come with that, you're not going to feel good about it. You understand? If you have high blood pressure and hypertension, of course you're not going to feel good about life. You're going to be down and critical and depressed. If you are in a state, your parents were worriers and full of anxiety, and your mom was full of anxiety, and she was always on you, and she was like controlling, of course you're going to inherit that. And of course, if you can't control things in your world, when you have that sense of lack of control, of course you're going to feel like something is not right. Of course you're going to go to an opposite extreme. We have to pay attention to all of that. Physical health, our mental health. Everything is not going to be solved with ruqya and dua and so on and so forth. But we are obligated to make an effort with those things. And at times we're obligated to seek out people that we can trust that are qualified mental health professionals to be able to deal with these situations. When we have people that tell us we're suicidal, we can't write that stuff off. We need to stand by there, like somebody said, affirm the person. But we also need to, before that happens, where we have to affirm people, we need to love each other. And loving each other is initially like part of Iman is being concerned with the affairs of the believers. Part of Iman is to love for our brothers what we do for ourselves. That stuff is a reality. It's not it's not a nicety of the deen. You understand what I'm saying? We say, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we say that our Iman is not complete until we love for our brothers what we love for ourselves. There's a missing dimension in that. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in the Quran describes as إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً, that the believers are brothers. When we look at trauma therapy, there's a book that's called Body Keeps Score. Dr. Koch, he noted that there's 3 ways to deal with trauma. One is talk therapy, the other one is meds, and another one is the issue of love, right? Is the issue of love. And he noted, as a doctor that was studying trauma, he noted that most of the times people that are really struggling with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of times they're disconnected from loving environments. They're disconnected from a community which is concerned about their well-being. He said, yes, if that's the only thing that we're going to need, a family and a community well-being. Sometimes we may need to talk to somebody. Sometimes we may even need medicine. But he said, most of the time, that's what's missing, people. A lot of us are depressed because we don't feel love. We should be open with that. We should be open with the fact that we're not feeling love, and as a consequence of that, we're going into emotional states that literally are taking us into other states, and those other states are things which are destructive. Depression is the internalization of a certain level of violence. We're being violent to ourselves internally. That doesn't mean that every state of depression we have control over, because some of our children become depressed and internalize depression because of what goes on in their households, because of what they see, what goes on in school, or what goes on in the environment, right? But for too long, we're thinking that everything is solved with dua and everything is solved with a ruqya and types of things, and we're saying no, we're not going to that castle, and we got iman. The Muslim is never depressed and this and that. What the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they question, Mata Nasrullah, when will the help of Allah come? The Prophet and the companions, and then they were told that the help of Allah, is near. And so it's normal when we go through these trials and tribulations to feel stuff, especially in the pandemic. You understand what I'm saying? More and more, I'm seeing Muslims, they're going off on each other. And guess what? When we don't pay attention, in this community I'm living here now in the Chicagoland area, a young brother committed suicide a few weeks back. You know what I'm saying? And the community at first stayed silent about it. And we act like it doesn't exist. Yes, there was a time where this did not exist in the Muslim community. It did not exist. There was a time when this did not exist at this level in the black community. Let's be open. It was a European American phenomenon. But it exists now. In Texas, a few years back, 50 people that committed suicide in one Muslim community because the Muslims have trauma from war. The Muslims have trauma from refugees. The Muslims have trauma from living in the hood and hearing that tra, tra, tra in the background. We have all kinds of situations which are causing us to be in emotional imbalanced states. And we will do better once we admit that, look, we have X, Y, Z going on. I have right now the community on the East Coast. There's a massive debate going on because some of the older hip hop generation, now they're being accused of sexual molestation. They're being accused, of sexual misconduct. And it was going way back to some of the founders of hip hop. So now people are like, what's going on? You have all of these, the molestation of young boys and young girls and this and that. Yes, we have all of these things going on and we keep them quiet. And then what ends up happening is some of us are walking around with this stuff and it goes untreated. There was, in one community, I won't mention the details of where that community was at. There was a young boy whose stepfather had molested him. And guess what? The community knew that brother was doing something in that family. And what ended up happening is that young brother ended up going years later with that situation that was never addressed or treated, and he ended up molesting a whole series of boys in multiple states. And I blame the community because the community knew that was going on, that there was something wrong, and they let it be, and they left it as a personal issue, or that's them, or we don't interfere, or or we don't get involved in that way. And then that young man ended up being in a courtroom on national television with a kufi on, with his name like Ahmed or Muhammad. We're not gonna know his name, but the point that he's coming out into the public now, and people are looking at this Muslim dude that committed all of these violations, but at one time there was that young Muslim innocent boy that was left to himself. So there's many different reasons why we have mental health issues. Right now in this pandemic, there's people without work. There's people that they don't know what their future situation is going to be. That causes real anxiety. It's not that they don't trust in Allah. Our people trust in Allah. Our people are the people that their utility bills go unpaid because of their struggle. And the only thing that they have is dua. And somehow or some way they resolve the situation. Our people are the ones that they have to get from point A to point B in the middle of the winter, and they necessarily don't know how they're going to do it, and they make it work and they make it happen. They keep 2 jobs, 3 jobs. they make, a lot come out of $5. Our people are the ones that struggle. Many of our people have iman. We're not questioning the base of iman. What we're questioning is how we're dealing with ourselves, and what we're questioning is how we're correcting these situations. Let's be honest with you. Mental health right now, whether it's for you and your spouse going through a situation of marital difficulty, you don't have insurance. If you can't access a counselor, you're gonna be paying $100 and something an hour to get professional help. Our community is in a crisis situation. We need support. We need people that understand us and love us and are willing to invest in us. And we need to be doing that for each other. But unfortunately, economically, we may not have the ability to pay a counselor that's qualified, that understands our community X amount of dollars to get the support that we need. Because that's what it's cut down to, is become a money thing, right? So what do we do in the meantime? In the meantime, we have to learn things like, mental health first aid. We have to learn things like the basics of counseling. What we have to do is we have to look at these agencies and bang on their door. And, we need a training from you back to our community. We need, for instance, bystander training. Bystander training is that a basic, there's a basic training that a few of us can get when we begin to learn how to identify basic things like, where's Brother Muhammad? Brother Muhammad was constantly in the salah line. He was in the second row on a regular basis. Where's he at? In our community, when I was in one of the communities, we knew that brothers were missing, and we knew when brothers were off chain that they went the wrong route. And one time in the Juma, I told the brothers, where's so and so at? Y'all need to go get so and so, because y'all know so and so is struggling. Don't sit behind the scenes and talk about so and so. You understand what I'm saying? So and so lost his wife. So and so was struggling with his health. So now so and so is going to the corner of the block and he's self-medicating. Y'all need to go get so and so and make sure he's back in the front line. This was the brother that was in the front line of the salah. He fell off of the salah. Now he's getting high. He's in his apartment for days. Y'all know that he got this little check or whatever. So he's dosing out. But what are y'all doing to bang on that brother's door to show that brother that you love him and you're creating an environment to help him out? So we need to be able to have that type of sensitivity where we're sensitive to each other. This person is looking like they're going into depression. This person looks like, something's going on. Sometimes their Facebook posts may be reading some wild stuff. You know what I'm saying? Don't go and condemn them. See what's going on. So that's kind of like the bystander training, where we're looking at each other and we're trying to see, are you okay? You know what I'm saying? What is it, what is it that you need? And sometimes the only thing that people need is for us to be good listeners. That's another skill that we can develop. If we become good listeners, being good listeners, sometimes when somebody listens to you and they connect with you heart to heart and you feel they understood you, not that they're giving you advice every 5 minutes, but they understood you, they connect with you, is a healing process. Sometimes it's a matter of sitting down and eating with someone. Someone is going through a divorce. Someone is going through a job loss. Someone is going through a number of different things. You know what I'm saying? All they need is you as a brother or a sister to be somebody that, that's there. To be somebody that shows that they care. But what we need to do is not only take responsibility for ourselves and try to develop certain skills that we need for our own survival and development as a community, but we need to put in pressure on these agencies which are in our communities to give back to us. You understand what I'm saying? We need to be involved with our local legislation to make sure that they have something that's there for us. This is one of the reasons, and I'm gonna get into a political point, but this is one of the reasons why we're talking about defunding the police in many places, because we were saying that we need money for mental health. We need money for housing. We need money for education. We need money to create environments which will allow us to heal. And so the first thing that we as Muslims should do is that masjid environment should be a place of healing. It should be a place where mental health as an issue is not a problem to discuss. It's only in this age. The scholars in the 9th century, like Imam al-Balkhi, talking about cognitive therapy. He was talking about watch the way that you think about life. If you think that life is only peaches and roses, then you don't have a right conception of the nature of the dunya. Life in the dunya is hardship and ease. But at the same time, if you always interpret things negatively, if you always have a negative interpretation, of course that's going to lead to depression. So Imam al-Balkhi was saying that part of mental health is that we monitor that inner chatter. What am I telling myself about myself? What am I telling myself about trial and tribulation? What am I telling myself about my Rabb? Can we, do we think Allah can't transform our condition? Go back into your life and remember those moments and those situations in which you were in a jam and you did dua and you don't know how the situation came about, but it came about. And I'm one of those people, I'll tell you. I was in situations without a job, without knowing where income was gonna come, and Allah brought me my risk right to my door. My Rabb, our Rabb is not one that is poor. Our Rabb is Ghani. So whatever, this is where the function of dua comes in now. You understand what I'm saying? That first we have to take the means, taking care of ourselves and our health, but then at the same time, we're depending upon Allah. And when we ask Allah for a better life, when we ask Allah to help us with that situation that we're going through, to help us through that hard divorce, to help us through that sense that we have, Allah, really feel like I'm despairing because I'm banging on the doors. I'm trying to get this, I'm trying to get a job. I need to take care of myself. I need to take care of my kids. The opportunities are closing. I don't have anywhere to turn to you except to you, Allah. That we need to combine that with the actual effort to change our condition. And lastly, I want to say is this: sin is real, brothers and sisters. Sometimes we sin. Also, it's like self-medicating. Like some of our brothers and sisters, they smoke weed and this and that to make themselves feel better. And some of us actually sin as a way to feel good about it, as a way to make to get a sense of peace, to escape that we're going through. But that only puts us in a cycle of madness. You understand what I'm saying? Transgression, you know what I'm saying? Transgression is not going to help us. Some of us, we find ourselves in the club. Some of us, we find ourselves kicking it. You know what I'm saying? And look, I'm going to say to you, it's not about condemnation. Understand. You understand the struggle. We may not understand specifically what you're going through, but we understand the struggle. But that type of transgression, firstly against yourself, because we can't violate Allah. When Allah prohibits something, it's because it's against our benefit. It doesn't take anything away from the kingdom of Allah. It doesn't rock the arsh of Allah. It doesn't take away from the power of Allah. But it does take away from our own dignity. That's why Allah made it prohibited. So we have to do, the both parts. You know what I'm saying? Well, we're creating an environment like this. This is a masjid which is creating an environment where we can begin to heal. Where we can begin to heal, where we can begin to address our condition spiritually, emotionally, mentally, in our families, economically, what we're going through. Just a few weeks, just a couple of days ago, they killed another person in Chicago. There's been about 3 or 4 killed. And I'm going to tell you that every killing that has been taking place, I'm talking about from just the police side, I'm talking about killings in the whole community, only the amount of stress. The amount of stress. You know what I'm saying? That we feel from these types of situations. So we need to have the environment in the masjid where we're deep in talking about Iman and the power of Allah and knowing Allah correctly according to the book and the Sunnah and encouraging each other to Iman and to Ibadah. But we also need to look at how to clean house. How to address what it is that we're thinking. If you feel that you're suicidal when you find yourself making a plan, or you see anybody making a plan, you have to be with that person. You have to call a hotline. That stuff is online. You use your smartphone, this, that. We can't take that stuff lightly. We have to be there as a community, you know what I'm saying, to address those types of situations. We have to learn how to differentiate between what's a serious situation, what's not a serious situation. We're not going to do that with, one small session. But that's why I said these agencies that are in our communities, we have to look them up and we have to ask them, we need you to come to our community and do a training to give back to the community. And we have to keep pushing, until we get them to give back. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, people, there's no shame, if you may need to take medicine. The thing is to go to an agency that loves you and cares about you. If you can't find that, that may be a problem, but you still have the obligation to take care of yourself. You start off from there, you have the obligation to look up how you have to take care of your mental health care, your mental health situations, but you can't just leave yourself without any address. You know what kind of thinking you got going on. You know what I'm saying? If you know your thinking is off and you feel that it's off, you know what I'm saying? You need to get that help. We love you. We can't have you in a situation where you're taking yourself out of this world. The thing, people, is this: that people that commit suicide, we misunderstanding. We can't.
You got 1 minute, Shake. 1 minute. 1 minute left, inshallah.
Huh?
You got 1 minute left.
We can't say that those types of people are definitely in the hellfire because we have no evidence. It's an act that can put us in the hellfire, but those people still get salat al-janaza. We still need to be supportive of those families. The imam shouldn't be the one that prays, but the community should be the one that steps up. And the imam doesn't pray on the person that commits suicide to show the community that that's not the route of the believers. But if it happens, we can't necessarily blame the person because we don't know what was going on in their minds. They may have lost control of their situation. So I hope I hope that was beneficial. And whoever needs to talk, you know what I'm saying, we're available. We try to be supportive. We can try to find some supports in the area. You know what I'm saying? Available through Facebook. The distance is not going to keep us from doing our due diligence when it comes to being there for one another. We have stuff like
Barakallahu fik. Yusuf, Jazakallahu khair. Very enlightening, very dynamic. Inshallah ta'ala. Ask Allah not to let this last time. And thank you so much for your time. Peace. Allah ta'ala. You there. You know, community. One extended family. Allah to the next time.
Love you, brothers, for the sake of Allah.
Love you too. Alhamdulillah. Wassalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I want you to tell me how much battery time on. Let's switch. Open Facebook. You have the stand for this, right?
Yeah.
You can switch.
Stories thread. Live video. Profile picture. Button.
Turn voiceover off.
Hanifa Davis
Turn
is
voiceover
watching.
off. Yeah, he's next up. Turn voiceover off.
Okay. Voiceover off. Voiceover.
I'm gonna do it on this one.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna sit. Hold on 1 minute, honey. We're switching devices, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. And thank you for your patience, those online.
So exit this one.
Yes, I'm gonna exit this one, show online, and I'm gonna take this and move it.